Sean P. Diddy Combs, a man once celebrated as a music mogul and mogul of influence, now stands accused in a courtroom that has become the battleground for one of the most explosive trials Hollywood has ever seen.
Testimony resumed today in Sean Combs' federal racketeering and sex trafficking trial. Don Richard, a former member of a girl group formed by Combs, was back on the stand. Cassie Ventura's former best friend, Carrie Morgan, also testified, and the day ended when one of Sean Combs' former assistants took the stand.
The charges? Sex, trafficking, racketeering, and brutal abuse. At the heart of it all, Cassandra Ventura Fine, his ex-girlfriend, and the prosecution's star witness. How could someone so close to Diddy claim she was trapped, abused, and coerced, when the messages and moments between them paint a picture of love and complicity?
Who has been in court from the very beginning, joins us now. What were some of the key moments in testimony today?
So a lot of the testimony was focused on the physical assaults that Don Richard and Carrie Morgan said that they witnessed firsthand. Richard said that she'd seen a number of assaults, him kicking her, smacking her, and Morgan described in great detail.
This is not just a trial of facts, but of fractured truths and complex emotions. Cassie Ventura's testimony reveals a world beneath the glitz. Forced freak-off parties, terrifying physical assaults, and psychological control. But mixed within are tender messages. Texts filled with love and longing, making the jury question what was real and what was survival. Imagine the horror, dragged by her hair down a hallway, bruised and battered, yet still sending texts saying, "Good morning to my king."
2 assaults. One was in Jamaica when they were on vacation. She testified that they were at a bar. Ventura went to the bathroom. Combs thought she was taking too long. And then Morgan said the next thing she heard was guttural screams that was from Ventura. She went to the hallway, saw Combs dragging her down the hallway by her hair. She said then they went outside and she saw Combs push Ventura to the ground. Ventura hit her head on the brick floor and she thought Ventura was passed out. She said Morgan was arguing with Combs. Ventura got up and ran into the woods and Morgan eventually found Ventura and they were hiding in a ditch while Combs and another friend was looking for them. So that was the most vivid testimony of the day. There's also testimony just about the control aspect of this, which both Morgan, Richard, and Combs' assistant, David James, testified that they had conversations with Ventura, and she said she couldn't leave because Combs was in charge of her career, of her finances, her car, her apartment. And so that was testimony that the jury heard really for the first time today, something that specific.
So how does this correspond to the testimony we heard in really dramatic fashion?
This isn't just a relationship. It's a cage built of love, fear, and control. Other witnesses add chilling layers to the story. Don Richard, a former associate, recalls the day she saw Diddy strike Cassie with a skillet, a moment so violent it stunned everyone in the courtroom. Carrie Morgan, Cassie's best friend, recounts the gut-wrenching screams as Diddy dragged Ventura down a hotel hallway in Jamaica. Witnesses describe Combs pounding on doors with a hammer, terrorizing those around him. This trial isn't just about physical acts, but psychological imprisonment. Dr. Daniel Bober, a forensic psychiatrist, explains trauma bonding, how fear, love, and dependency create a prison invisible to the outside world. Despite brutal abuse, victims can appear compliant, even loving, because walking away feels impossible. 17 years of age difference, a man with immense power and influence.
From Cassie Ventura, and how do you think that the prosecution wants jurors to hear this in terms of what it means to the actual charges that Combs is facing?
So these jurors are backing up what Ventura said about a violent relationship. They can't tie it to the freak-offs, which is part of the sex trafficking charge, but they are providing additional examples and, in Morgan's case, corroborating what Ventura had already told the jury about following the hotel surveillance video fight that was captured and what happened back at her apartment where Morgan testified today. Combs showed up with a hammer, was banging on the door. She said she was terrified, and she said Ventura was sitting on the couch numb, as though she didn't care if Combs even broke in and killed her. So they're providing additional context. The other thing, hearing from this personal assistant of Combs, he's testifying both about the Cassie and the sex trafficking. One thing he said he overheard was Combs saying, "I got her right where I want her. She's young, very moldable," of Ventura. And then also testifying about when he was interviewing for the job, he met with someone from HR, and the HR woman pointed to a picture of Combs on the wall, and it said, "This is Mr. Combs' kingdom. We're all here to serve him." This witness choked up when he was recounting that testimony. And this is where I think prosecutors want to get to the racketeering charge as well. Just that this was an enterprise of people. Combs was in charge of his security detail, his assistants, and people looked the other way when there was abuse happening before them.
For Cassandra, leaving wasn't just about ending a relationship. It was about survival. The most haunting piece of evidence, a 2016 hotel surveillance video, shows Sean P. Diddy Combs physically assaulting Cassie Ventura. This brutal attack, caught on camera, shattered the defense's narrative of consensual encounters. Following the assault, Cassie was so terrified that even when Diddy showed up banging on her apartment door with a hammer, she felt she had nowhere to turn. Witnesses say police came, but Ventura refused to speak, a chilling testament to the control he held over her. The trial has ignited a firestorm online. TikTok exploded with videos claiming Free Diddy protests were orchestrated, stirring fierce debate.
Of testimony is just wrapped up in the sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs. I want to bring in CNN correspondent Kara Scannell. She's live outside the federal courthouse in New York. And we're also joined by CNN legal analyst Elliot Williams. Kara, let me start with you. What did we hear today? I mean, a lot of what we're looking at, I mean, it's really graphic and awful.
Yeah, Casey, the jury heard additional testimony today about physical violence that these witnesses said they saw Sean Combs do to Cassie Ventura. One witness who testified today was Carrie Morgan, Ventura's best friend of 17 years. She was friends with Ventura before she started dating Combs, and throughout most of their relationship, she testified about several incidences of violence. One, she said that they were in Jamaica sitting at a bar and Ventura went to the bathroom. Combs said she was taking too long. Then Morgan testified that she heard a guttural scream, had seen Combs dragging Ventura by her hair down a hallway. She said that continued to outside where she saw Combs throw Ventura to the ground. Ventura's head hit a brick, and Morgan testified she wasn't sure if Ventura was knocked out. She said Ventura did get up, ran to the woods, and they eventually found her, but they were hiding for a while in a ditch trying to avoid Combs and his associates who were looking for them. You know, she also testified about what occurred after the March 2016 assault that was captured on that hotel surveillance video. The jury had last week seen photos of some injuries to Ventura's face, and Morgan said that when Ventura returned to her home, Morgan was there. She said that it was that Combs had showed up and was banging on the door with a hammer. Morgan testified that she was terrified. The police ultimately came, but Ventura did not speak to them. She wouldn't identify herself. And she said later that Ventura had not wanted her to talk to the authorities and that Ventura felt like she couldn't leave Combs because he was in control of her career. Now, we also heard today from a personal assistant to Combs who became emotional on the witness stand when he testified about his interview at Bad Boy Records to become his personal assistant. This assistant, David James, testified that he was told by the head of
Instagram stories from celebrities and influencers poured in, their voices cracking with disbelief and sorrow. Fans are divided. Some refuse to believe the man they admired, while others demand accountability, reminding us that fame should never shield abuse. The defense doesn't back down. They expose financial motives, Cassie's settlements, and potential millions at stake.
Human resources that this is Mr. Combs' kingdom, and we're all here to serve him. He also testified about an exchange he had with Ventura in which he talked to her about leaving this chaotic, crazy lifestyle, and Ventura told him, James testified, that she couldn't leave because Combs was in charge of her career and her money and her apartment, and so she couldn't leave. He'll be back on the witness stand tomorrow. It was interesting. When he was leaving the courtroom, he looked over at Combs, he nodded at him, and Combs nodded back toward him. This testimony clearly not helpful for Combs' defense. Casey?
Well, and Elliot Williams, to that point, I mean, why is this all such a focus? It seems to be that they need to prove that this was against her will in order to prove sex trafficking, because we saw those opening statements where the defense basically said, well, domestic violence is not sex trafficking. What are your takeaways from what we learned today?
They highlight love notes and intimate texts, painting a relationship that was complicated but consensual. But the prosecution counters with psychological nuance. Victims don't always see their trauma clearly. Delayed recognition means pain is realized years later, often too late. The courtroom will soon hear from Dr. Dawn Hughes, an expert on trauma coping strategies, to explain why victims may stay, comply, and even appear affectionate. The defense's expert will argue Ventura had agency, that she could have walked away. For the jury, the choice is agonizing. how to reconcile loving texts with violent abuse, how to weigh trauma against apparent consent. Meanwhile, social media and news outlets pulse with opinion and debate. As the trial moves forward, all eyes remain fixed on the courtroom.
Took the stand. CNN's Kara Scannell, who has been in court from the very beginning, joins us now. What were some of the key moments in testimony today?
So a lot of the testimony was focused on the physical assaults that Don Richard and Carrie Morgan said that they witnessed firsthand. Richard said that she'd seen a number of assaults, him kicking her, smacking her, and Morgan described in great detail.
Will the prosecution's psychological evidence shatter Sean P. Diddy Combs' empire, or will the defense's portrayal of autonomy prevail? One thing is clear, this trial isn't just about one man, but the larger story of power, control, and survival in Hollywood's shadows. Stay tuned for every explosive update, and don't forget to subscribe for the latest in Hollywood's most dramatic trials.
There was a whole discussion about why do you have to tell the jury about that? They can use their own common understanding about it. Plus, it might conflict with a legal definition of coercive control. But if we believe that's what Dr. Hughes is going to testify for the prosecution, what is the defense going to do? Well, we believe the defense is going to call their own forensic witness, forensic psychologist Dr. Alexander Barty. So, Dr. Bober, after everything we've just talked about, what do you think the defense's expert is going to say?
I think the defense expert is going to say that at the end of the day, she had free will, that she had autonomy and independence, and that she could have walked away. I think that's what they're going to say. I think they're going to, if they're smart, acknowledge the fact that these phenomena exist, but that in this particular case, this went on for years and she could have walked away. I think that's what they're going to say.
And maybe strike a little bit at that therapy to recall memories. I would imagine, maybe?
Yep, to try to undermine it, correct.
Battle of the experts. Once again, look, I think that this is a very, very important issue in this case. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. You can make the argument that this case rises and falls based on the testimony of Cassie. So this, to me, feels like a central issue. I'm happy we had a chance to talk a little bit more about it. Again, for anybody who's watching this, and I was putting these questions, I don't want it to make it look like I don't believe Cassandra Ventura fine or whatnot. I'm raising the questions that will definitely come up by both the prosecution and the defense. It's something that I think the jury is going to have to wrestle with when they go back to deliberate in, 7 weeks.